Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. This is Design Build Launch episode 2. In the last video, we created our simple wireframe, not worrying too much about our typography or our spacing, just getting our content laid out on the screen here. And we have a lot of our sections kind of blocked out. In today's video, before we start designing, we need to refine this, add our typography, get our content on here, and start working on our spacing. Before we dive right into it, making today's episode possible is Milanote. Milanote is a bit different than traditional software. It's more like working on a wall in a creative studio. It allows you to map out your projects, gather and organize all of your inspiration in one convenient place, and it allows you to collaborate with your colleagues or clients in real time. As a full stack designer, it's an essential part of my workflow, and this awesome tool is free, so check out the link at the top of the description. So at this point, what I like to do is set my H1 through H4 or how many ever I'm using with my paragraph, anchor text, and get all that laid out, and then update this, and then we'll apply some content. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So I like to work my way down from the H1. So we're gonna start with that. Right now we're using Helvetica font, and I think I wanna use Roboto. So let's go ahead and just change this to Roboto. And right away, let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's bold this. What do we have for our line height? 106. So let's do 80 times 1.3, which is 130%. And so I think that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to go and open my assets panel, go to the character styles and just hit the plus. And I like to double click on this and edit the name. And just add H1 after that so I know what it is. From here, we need to do the H2, and the H2 is this element right here. It's currently setting at 49, so let's drop that down to 40 to get some more separation between this large H1. And let's also match the weight to bold and update that to Roboto. Think I'm good with that, so we'll go ahead and add that in the character styles, drag that below the H1, and we'll call that H2. For the rest of these headings through here, like this one, I want these to be an H4, I believe, because I want my logo to actually be the H3. So let's go ahead and do that one next. So 30 might actually work just fine. Let's go ahead and bold that and see. Might bump it up just a little bit to 32. So let's actually just call this logo, since it's probably going to be the only thing using this. And I'll actually leave that on top. For the rest of these, we're going to call these H3. So let's update these to Roboto. Change that to bold. And I think I want to drop these down to like 26, just to get some more separation between that and the H2. We don't want to have them too similar to something like that where you can barely tell the difference. So we'll add that. And now that we have those, let's go ahead and update these headings. So this one needs to be larger than these, so it's going to be an H2. And then we'll go down to the bottom, add that one as an H2 as well, and this one as well. So I think we got all of our headings set. And obviously we have some problems here. We'll worry about that in a bit. Let's move on to, actually I missed one. And let's actually scale this one to an H3. H2 is a little bit too big. And so with that, let's go ahead and work on the paragraph text. So for the paragraph text, I actually want this a decent size because we're using such large headings. So let's try 22. And with that, I'm gonna do 22 times 1.5 for 150% spacing. To give that a little bit of room to breathe, make it a little bit easier to read. Let's remove the rest of this and see what an actual paragraph would look like. That looks pretty good. So we'll add that down here at the bottom. Oh, and we also forgot to change that to Roboto, so we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll update this, edit Roboto. So we'll add that to our paragraphs. And lastly, we have the links. So we'll go up here to the navigation, and I'll grab one of those. And 17 might be fine. Let's try 18. And I'm gonna hit the live preview. I like to go into the live preview just to look at this to get a good idea. It kind of frames it out. And that's a very small difference, but I think I like the larger size. Let's see how that looks throughout. Yeah, this looks a little too small for the paragraph. So I think we're gonna go with 18. And we might also bump that up to something like a medium, just to give it a little bit more weight there. So we'll go ahead and change that to Roboto. and add that to our styles. And I'll do -A for anchor, which is our links. So we'll set those and set this one in the corner. Make sure we underline that one. Down here, we have another link. Yep, we need to underline that one as well. And then we need this one. And then our social links. So before we start fixing some of these spacing issues that have now occurred, I want to get some content on the screen. So I have some typography prepared ahead of time. So let's go ahead and get our hero section started. So right here, I'm just gonna go ahead and add my name. A little period there at the end. And for me, I'm gonna add full stack. And then digital designer. And then on a new line, I'm gonna do and developer. But like I said, feel free to change this to your own content. In the corner, we want this to be a nice call to action. So let's just add something like, let's start a project. We'll come back to our links once we have our sections done here. We want those to kind of reflect what these headings are. So until we set those, it's a good idea just to not worry with those for now. So I'm just going to copy in these headings that I have prepared. So this is going to be our disciplines, and I'm going to put mine in here. So user interface. And I'm actually going to have one more. So I'm just going to copy that and drag that down and then put in consulting. For this next section, it's our projects. I'm just going to put something like some of my favorite projects. So make that stand out. Then we'll just change that to about me. And then at the bottom, I have another heading copied. So we'll put that there, and I'm actually gonna have to make this 3 lines of text. I'll just do that and just drag that up for now. We already have social in here, so that works good. For our links, I'm just gonna put in medium, projects, and then lastly, Instagram. So I think we have all of the headings changed. So let's go ahead and change these links. So the first link here is gonna take us to the discipline section. So I want to reflect that, but also give them a little info so they know what they're clicking on. So I'm gonna call this digital designer and developer. So next, let's go with completed projects. Then about me was our next section. And then for the call to action, I'm gonna call this consulting and concepts. And the reason I'm doing that is because we already have this call to action right here, which is let's start a project. So when they select this, it's gonna go all the way down here to the bottom. And it's gonna have these 2 cards. This one's gonna be for consulting, and this one's going to be for a design concept. So these are 2 services that we offer that somebody can click on and get in contact with us for this specific item. So that's why I'm gonna name that. And also, we might not have this scroll all the way down because that's 2 links that do exactly the same thing. This might be like an email link, so like an email to link. So I'm not 100% sure what I want to do with that now, but I think that looks pretty good for now. So let's get some paragraph text in here, and then we will move on to adjusting the spacing for this design. For this section in particular, I'm just going to put something about Dribble. And then for this link, we'll just update this to view more projects on Dribble. So that's going to link to more of our projects. And then we'll change this to let's talk about your product. I think that will be pretty good. So I'm just gonna save that real quick, and we have all of our content now on the screen. So I'm gonna double click and turn back on our layout grid and command semicolon to turn that line back on right there, our guideline. So now that we have our typography decided, sized correctly, and we have our content in each one of our fields, we need to make sure that the spacing and the overall design looks good. So basically I wanna get this to a design that is completely finished without color and without our images in here. That is the last step that we're gonna do. So to fix our spacing, we're just going to go through one by one, make sure everything is aligned properly how we want it, and everything is looking good. So for example, this header right here, I can just tell this is not on that line. We're going to go through and make those kinds of adjustments. So let's start with our navigation here in the corner. Let's see what kind of spacing we have. 40, I think works. We'll just make sure that's consistent throughout, which it's not. So we'll just update each one of those. We need to make sure that logo is center aligned with that, and we'll see how far that is from the top. That looks good, 90, and so we'll have to center this one up. So all three of these should be center, and then the navigation is 40 below on each. How far is this from this logo? Let's just drop that down to an even 200, just so that looks good. This needs to be touching that bottom edge of that fold. Just line that up visually. And for our first spacing, I need this to be a decent size, so I'm going to go with 90. And each one of these needs to have 80 in between the paragraphs. I think that will look good. So we want a little bit more spacing between all these elements and the heading, because we don't want that to be equal here, here, and here. It doesn't look as good. So I'm just going to adjust the bottom of each of these and check the spacing. So we'll grab that one, move that up, 80. And then that section should be good to go. So we have good vertical spacing in this section now. I just think some of these paragraphs are a little bit too long in character length. So I'm going to scale these in just a bit. So I'm just going to drag this into about there. And let's actually just make that 1, 2, 3, 4 columns wide. So as we do that, it's going to shift some of these to a 3 line. So we're going to actually have to add even more spacing here. So we have some variation, 2 line, 3 line, 3 line, and 2 line. Looks good. All the spacing there is good. So let's go ahead and grab all of this content below, even unlocking this rectangle. And we need to decide how much spacing we want in between this section and this one. Or it's probably around 80 spacing there. So let's just drag that down to about 300. Hold shift as I drag. Then use my arrow keys to finish this off. Let's do 295, and then we'll fix this just like that and see what we got. 316, that's close enough. We'll go with that. So we have 80 spacing, pretty much consistent throughout there. So I want to add 40 in between all of these. So we'll just drop that down 5, just like that. Move that over to 70. Move that one to match. And then we'll grab these, shift them down until they are 70. And then grab the bottom one. So we have 70 on both the vertical and horizontal spacing between these cards. And we need to drag this paragraph over until it touches that left side. It's going to turn off this layout just for a sec. I think I want to shift these down so they're kind of asymmetric. So I'm going to grab this entire right-hand column and go down 70. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm holding shift as I use my down arrow on my keyboard. That gives that section just a little bit more style. Then we'll adjust this paragraph. See how much spacing we have. It's a little bit too large. I think 30 is looking pretty good. So far we've used 90, 80, 70, 40, and 30, I believe, throughout, just depending on the size of the elements and how much spacing we need. But one thing we don't want to do is have everything spaced exactly the same. If we do that, we don't make anything look grouped together. So these look like they belong together because they have the same consistent spacing, but then there's also this bigger gap of content right here, letting you know that visually this is its whole separate thing other than this. So let's keep going down the page, turn back on my grid. Got about a column of space there. I think I want to increase this to a larger size, like something like that, possibly. No, let's undo that. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns wide, but let's just knock that over to another column. That way we have more of a gap here. So that's more like a 1 column gap. That looks pretty good. And we'll make sure that we have 300 spacing approximately in between this. There we go. And we'll need to do the same thing down here for this bottom. So I'll grab everything, hold Alt to see where our spacing's at with all that selected. It's at 155, so we'll drop that down 5 pixels. and then hold shift, down arrow, until we get to 300. Just like that. I'm going to double click on the artboard and drag down. And a good trick here is to select the bottommost rectangle like this, hold Alt on that, and it will tell you it needs 373 spacing. So I will select the artboard, go up here, and minus 373. We'll put that right on the bottom of the artboard, just like that. Let's see if we can't make this paragraph look just a little bit better. Working with growing startups to increase results. I think that looks visually better. Here we have 14. Let's drop that down to 30 to match what we use with our dribble paragraph. Keep that link nice and consistent. And then with these, we have 78. I want to drop those pretty far down because they're cards. And for the spacing, I think we went with 70 up here. Yep. So we'll just make sure that is consistent there as well. Now for these links over here, we just need to make sure that we have 30 from the heading there, and then 40 in between each of these to match the links on top. And then one thing I'm going to do is go up here, and since these are going to be sticky, I'm just going to select all these, and they are 99 from the top. So I'm going to copy those with Command C, go down here to the bottom, paste those in with Command V. And so we're going to put that 99 from the top of this section. So that's where they're going to sit when the user scrolls down to there, since they're stuck on the screen in that position. And for the spacing in between this, I want to cut that 300 we're using in half and go with something like 150. So I'm going to select all these links and drag them to 150, maybe even 130. But for now, we're going to keep that. I'm going to delete those and hit live preview with this artboard selected. We'll just scroll down and see how this looks. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So there's actually one more thing we need to do. These cards right here are going to be images, but they are going to have some text. So we'll add that in just a second. But the other cards down here at the bottom, I want to do these first. So I'm going to lock this layer with Command L. With that rectangle selected, it locks it. And what I want to do is I'm going to hold Alt and click and drag to duplicate that heading and change this to consulting. We'll go ahead and start to build out this card. Let's try 20 spacing from the left-hand side of that card to start. And then below this, we'll have some paragraph text. I actually have this pre-written, so I'm just going to paste that in. And we'll go to our paragraph text. And you'll notice that 22 is very large. This is a small card. So let's scale this down to around 16. And with that, we're going to have to decrease the line height. So let's try 16 times 1.3 to start. It's a little too narrow. Let's try 16 times 1.4 for 140% line spacing. And we'll drag this out. Let's go with about 200 width and drag this down. So we have 4 lines of text. It's going to touch the bottom of that text area right there, and we'll bump that up and align that to the left. So we have 20 spacing on each side of that text area with that width, and 30 from the bottom. And I'm going to align this heading spacing visually. I want it to be up pretty high, maybe 14. And let's actually bump this up 5 more pixels to 35. See how that card looks. Pretty good. Hold Shift and select both of them. Hold Alt, click and drag. And we'll put that centered on this card. And then we'll change the text. So we have try a design concept. And these are pretty cool. They're for like a limited budget project. So we want to offer those here as well. And we're going to have some icons here in the corner. And I know they're either going to be 24 or 36 pixels. I'm just going to drag out a square, set it to 36, and set that to 20 in the corner there. Hold Alt and duplicate that. So 20 and 20. And then I'm going to select both of these and change them to a darker color gray, just for a placeholder for now. And I think with that, we have everything done but adding our text here. And so we'll start by grabbing the type tool, and I'm just going to type in product design, just as an example of what one of these projects could be titled. and we're gonna set that to our H2 size text. All these are gonna be center aligned, and we're just gonna put them in the center of the cards. So I'm just going to grab both of those and use the alignment tools to center that up. So I'm just gonna hold Alt and drag out duplicates of each of these and center them in the card. And be careful when you're centering these that you don't have the card shift over on you, so just be watching that when you're doing it. So I'm just going to do that. And then one more time. And then you can name these whatever you'd like. So on this one where it's 2 lines, I'm gonna recenter that one. And this one, I don't think it's gonna look good if we go 2 lines, so I might leave that. Let's go ahead and test that. Yeah, I think it looks better 1 line. All right, so these are going to be our projects. We'll work on that when we finish this design off. But I think with that, we have done everything we can as far as getting all of our content on here. We are ready to start going with our colors and adding our images and finalizing this design and making it look really cool. Let's go ahead and select this and see what we have so far. We're not quite low fidelity, but we're not also high fidelity yet. I would call this kind of like a medium fidelity. We have our typography and our spacings now looking pretty good. We just don't have anything design-wise finished. So that's gonna do it for episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thanks again to the awesome people over at Milanote for sponsoring today's video and making this episode possible. If you'd like to check out their product for planning your next creative project, there's a link at the top of the description. I'll see you guys in episode 3, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.